Ain't doing that again. Move! For those who don't care, have never played Nioh before, Nioh has a stamina system a lot like Dark Souls, but instead of stamina, it's called ki. And if you don't ki pulse after every attack or combo or whatever, then you'll lose some of your stamina regeneration. So it's important to constantly keep an eye on your stamina and never let it go to zero. Otherwise, your character's going to be out of breath and you're going to stand there like an idiot while you get punched in the head or shot by an arrow.
Diagonal straps are fucking hell. Whoa! Yo! Speedrun strat!
I'm dancing.
Okay. Okay. That's enough.
But ki works both ways in this game. You have ki and the enemies have ki too. If you break their ki, they go down on the floor and you can do a execute type move. It does decent damage. But you have to be careful because human type enemies can do the same thing to you, so. There's a lot of mechanics in Nioh that I feel like could have been done better, just from a gameplay standpoint. And not all of them need to be changed, but the ki one is definitely a big one for me. But for the rest of this video, I'm going to be talking about other Nioh mechanics, things like the ki pulse system that I think could use a bit of a change, and just give my opinions on that, and just talk about the overall difficulty of this game and why I think it's a bad game. Combat in this game is pretty much the same as any other Souls-like type game we've ever played. It's, you know, wait for an opening, and then attack, and then dodge. It's pretty self-explanatory. But where Nioh combat differs from other Souls-likes is the stance system. Now the stances, you've got low, medium, and high, and each one fits a different niche in combat. So low hits low, and it's fast and quick, and does less damage. Medium is like your middle ground. It hits horizontal, mid-level, and it does a baseline amount of damage. And then high does more damage, and it hits high, but it's also the slowest stance type. Every stance type has its uses and benefits, but honestly most of the time you'll find that the mid stance kind of covers all middle grounds. The only reason you would ever really switch to another stance is if there was like a specific reason why you needed to do that. I'd say that most of this game's challenge comes from the outrageous enemy scaling. Normal enemies will do upwards of 800 damage to you, and then most of the harder enemies will just overkill you in one hit.
Task. There's a Kodama back there, Xander.
But in my personal experience, I was using the light armor and putting on more of an emphasis on dodging. But even with a heavy armor build and a higher base health, these enemies still do an unfair amount of damage, and it often ends up feeling like there was nothing you could have done other than just dodge out of the way. And we haven't even talked about some of the late game bosses that can just absolutely destroy you with one move.
I don't hate you, but you need to die. Oh my god, Sephiroth Hill.
The combat in this game can end up feeling very unfair and unrewarding at times because of the strange ki system and the way taking damage works. A lot of the time when you get hit by a strong attack, you can't move your character for a split second, which often means you just get stun locked and die. Whereas in Dark Souls you would have time to recover and try to roll away. Nioh just says fuck you buddy and holds you in place while you get manhandled by 5 enemies. There's also a lot of bullshit in this game with a capital B. Things sometimes are just out of your control, like a jank hitbox or a trap that really should have never been there to begin with. Comes from this asshole. A lot of your deaths are just gonna piss you off and make you hate life as you make the 30-minute trek back to where you die, because Nioh doesn't let you just run past every enemy like in Dark Souls. You have to kill everything on your way back. Because in this game, if you don't, They just follow you forever. And in some missions, they require you to kill every enemy, or you can't even fight the boss or clear the mission or whatever. So you have to kill every enemy.
Unlimited elixir plus 3.2%.
I don't know if that means it makes no fucking sense. Character customization is what you'd come to expect from a Souls-like. You can choose your armor and equipment as well as a variety of builds by leveling up specific stats that pertain to your build. But where Nioh kinda boosts it is with their unique stats system. It's just kinda all over the place. There's 3 different skills to increase health, but only some of them scale with certain weapons, and then is like the strength and the dexterity, which we're all used to, but then there's also skill, and then you have magic, which isn't even really magic, it's more like consumables and weapon buffs, and then you have this stat down here, which pertains to your living weapon and your divine spirit, which is something that I haven't even gotten into yet, and I'm now realizing how much shit I'm gonna have to talk about in this fucking video. Aside from equipment and stats, you also have skills that you can learn for your specific weapons. And, I mean, the skills differ from things like passive buffs, like damage, and being able to get iframes on certain moves. And sometimes you can get, like, actual abilities where you, like, press 2 buttons together and do, like, a crazy special move. But after you've picked which weapon you're going to use, you kind of have to figure out what kind of a build you're going to do. Now we come to the loot section of this game, which is not too dissimilar from looter shooters and Diablo type games, where you have a rarity system, enemies drop different kinds of loot. I mean, it's always the same, but the damage and the numbers and the stats can always be different. The problem I have in this game is that the stat numbers are way too confusing, and they seem to not really do much of anything. Like, there's no noticeable improvement. Like, you get 2% bonus, like, scaling, or you get 2% bonus damage against enemies that are on fire. It doesn't really have a lot of heft, which is why, for the most part, I just kind of equipped whatever had big numbers and moved on, which I guess is a good strategy.
But who needs fucking strategy when you have a big fucking gun?
Let's rock.
There's nothing. Okay. I love how I'm rewarded for using my surroundings. That's so awesome. You have 3 options when it comes to ranged weapons. You have a bow, a musket, and a cannon. And the bow is, you just get the whole lot of ammo. It does the least amount of damage. The musket does like the middle ground, and it carries, you know, a medium amount of ammo. And the cannon does the most damage, but you can carry like fucking no ammo for it. It's very similar to the stances. Just use the musket or the cannon. The bow is kind of eh. The last feature I'm going to talk about here is the living weapon system. And this is like your ultimate move button. You press circle and triangle or whatever it is, and you unleash your divine spirit onto your weapons, and you just get a short duration of extra damage, and you get to do extra elemental damage and shit. And I mean, that's really it. It's sort of an oh shit button. You can't really die while you're in it, so it's good for if you're about to die in boss and you just need to do a little bit more damage. There's a lot of different divine spirits you can equip, and they all do different things. I didn't really go deep into it, but if you wanted to do something centered around it, you could. Oh fuck about this story. This ain't no Yakuza story. I really have no interesting segue into the story because the story is pretty uninteresting. You play as a guy named William who's from Europe, and then he somehow ends up in Japan, and he has to kill this guy. And that's really it. There's different characters, and I mean, I didn't really pay attention to any of it. If you're playing Nioh for the story, it's probably not the right game for you, but all I'll say about the story is that some of the final bosses were really cool, and I did enjoy seeing some of the cool boss designs, but I mean, the story was pretty bad. Let's just be honest. And the final boss was so fucking easy. It was actually disappointing. get this like really cool like reveal. He's like the dude who's been like puppeteering the whole thing the whole time. And then you go to talk to him, and then like 100 eyes appear behind him, and you're like, what the fuck? What the fuck? And then you just whoop his ass. I already broke his fucking posture. Dude, I'm about to beat him first try. This is a disappointment. Bro, I just whooped your ass. What the fuck? Pretty sad because I didn't even really get to see any of his moves. I mean, he probably had like a whole move list that I just didn't get to see because I killed him in like 5 seconds. But then you get to the end game of Nioh, which is extremely unfun. It's a lot of grinding, just getting better gear, and then you have to fight a bunch of earlier bosses that are now harder that you have to fight 2-on-1. Dude, why is there fucking rock there? Who put that there? Who? I guess if I have to leave off with anything here, it's that Nioh, aesthetically and on the surface level, I like everything about it, but once you like play all the way through it as a package deal, it definitely becomes clear that it needs a lot more work. And I think the creators of this game realized that because when they made the second game, they fixed a lot of the problems I had with this game. And so if you really like what this game looks like, then I would recommend you just go play the second one, because it's going to play roughly the same. It's just all these rough edges and things that I have problems with are really not in the game anymore, and you can enjoy a more refined and polished version of this game.
つけてもらうのは2度目でござる。しかし鬼の腹の中ぬらりと最悪のここ